What about if the Niners don't re-sign Trent Williams? What are the alternatives there?
Oof.
Jack?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot there. If you look in the free agent market, even with Williams out, the next kind of tier of guys is still looking at the $11 to $15 million range. You got Alejandro Villanueva is a name that we've thrown out quite a bit. He's probably going to be somewhere in the $15 million range. So that's only about $5 million less. And then you go down a little bit further and you have a guy like Cam Robinson from Jacksonville, who's going to be available, but his value looks like it's going to be right around the $10 to $11 million range. So that would be another option there. Beyond that, you're looking at either going through the draft or, trying to, try out Justin School out there. They had some success with him in 2019. They almost beat Seattle with him last year playing left tackle. We know he's not going to be able to hold up well against. He's about as good as Mike McGlinchey on the other side. But even with CJ, CZ Beathard at quarterback, they almost beat Seattle. So, that's not something that's going to be exciting me. But I could see the Niners making that decision if necessary because of their quarterback.
Just don't start them against the Packers, and they're good.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Don't put them up against either Smith brother and they're fine. But if it's not Trent Williams, I think you bring it back. And if it's not Terran Armstead in a trade, then you go draft. I think they would have to trade up for Penei Sewell and Rashawn Slater. I really like Slater. Some people have him falling to the Niners. I think he goes earlier. So then if they're off the board, then it pretty much becomes, do they stick at 12 and get Christian Darrisaw or Elijah Vera Tucker? Do they trade back, get Jalen Mayfield? Do they get really cheap and get Kelvin Beachum, who's been a left tackle in the past and was a right tackle for Arizona last year? That's really cheap. Yeah, that wouldn't be the best decision in my opinion. But no. Yeah, that'd be probably plan F, plan G. F. Yeah. But if that's what happens, like if it becomes Kelvin Beachum or Justin School, I think I'd lean Kelvin Beachum because he made
Orlando Brown as Bailey Eagle.
Yeah, Orlando Brown would be an interesting trade target too. I don't know how much you would have to give up, but if they don't get Villanueva, I think they have to head to the trade market and get Armstead or get Orlando Brown. And there's some other interesting guys in 2022, Riley Reif, Charles Leno, I believe, on Chicago's a free agent in 2022. So maybe trade with that. But I think you got to go trade or draft.
Yeah, Orlando Brown, I had it in my pocket. Like after I sent this topic, and sure enough, was it Field Yates said, "Oh, well, Orlando Brown's available." I was like, "Oh, that's right. You requested a trade like a weeks ago." And I'm like, "Duh, that's someone that you could contemplate throw up as a talking point because." And I'd argue, no, I'm not arguing. He is a better option than Trent Williams. And obviously, you already give up picks for Williams. You got to cash him out too, and then at some point, you got to cash out Brown. But actually, what is his contract control? Actually, I haven't even looked at that. But
I'm looking at it right now for you. Hold on, I got you.
Yeah, Brown is the better player to go with Williams right now, just for at least the longevity standpoint. And that's something the 49ers need to take. And depending on what
$3.6 million this year, he's 25. It's his last year on his rookie deal.
Okay, last year in his rookie, that's perfect. And of course, he's gonna demand the Ravens are gonna demand some prices. That's the thing now. Now you're gonna be the 49ers 2 off seasons in a row. You're gonna drop adequate draft capital on 2 left tackles. One, if anything, then the Trent Williams one becomes a joke. This one becomes more of like, all right, you got to do it on a cheap deal and most likely someone in your future. But maybe if you're Orlando Brown, I mean, he's a great answer right there. That's someone you can consider. I just don't think they're going to do it because once again, 2 years in a row, that pretty much said, look, we messed up with Trent Williams. We gave up our right to franchise tag him. And that's kind of all where this stems down to because they thought they were being forthcoming with it. So alternative options, man. Jack had the perfect reaction. He's like, well, there's not much there. Like, there's not much there. That's why they kind of got to do almost a full court press with Williams. So I think they kind of messed up when that rumor was in December that got reported that about him. They tried to get in negotiations. They probably lowballed him and then he scoffed at it. So the Niners kind of have their own doing in this case, why they don't have enough alternatives to go that route.
Yeah, it gets complicated. I mean, as Firm Temmie here says, you could trade down and do all kind of stuff. Get Darrisaw or Tucker. Yeah, you could do that. You could stick at 12 and get Rashawn Slater. You could trade for Orlando Brown, which I think is interesting because I haven't watched Orlando Brown much since he went to the Ravens. Although he did a very good job against the Niners in 2019. Mm-hmm. I do remember scouting Nick Bosa, and I was a little hard on Nick Bosa when he came out of college. I remember watching his game against Orlando Brown in Oklahoma. And Orlando Brown, as I remember, kicked Nick Bosa's ass in that game. Kicked his ass.
Brown, sweet.
So I think Orlando Brown's a hell of a player. I don't know what it would take to get him and how much it would cost, but he probably would be cheaper than Trent Williams. He's a whole lot younger. I'm interested in that. He's way younger than Alejandro Villanueva or any of these left tackles you would get in free agency. But what I keep coming back to, and I still like doing, is trading up for Penei Sewell. I think he's I think he's as sure of a thing, and Maverick, you would know better than me, but I think he's as sure of a thing as any player in this draft. I think he's one of these cinch Pro Bowl 15-year vets up there with Trevor Lawrence. And I just feel like everyone's talking about the quarterback position with the Niners, but if you don't have pass protection, it doesn't really matter who's under center, in my opinion. And until the Niners fix this pass protection issue, they're just going to be setting up the next guy for failure. So Penei Sewell is a high level. It's a swinging for the fences move. Orlando Brown is an interesting consolation. Do any of you guys have a feeling if that's realistic or would that be too expensive?
Who's that, Orlando Brown?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be too expensive because they're going to have to give up at least their first, probably another draft pick to get him.
Yeah.
And he's going to be cheap this year. But the problem is you're going to be right back in the same situation again next year.
You're going to have to extend them immediately once you grab them because you don't want to pull a mistake of not extending Williams like you did last year.
Well, look at it this way. You could look at it like, all right, we're prepared to take Rashawn Slater at 12. Who do we like better, Rashawn Slater or 25-year-old Orlando Brown? How about that?
Orlando Brown.
Brown.
Slater at 6'3". How long are those arms? Because
exactly
that's the big concern there. He's because how long unless he's got a freaky long arms. I don't see him being a guy that's going to be able to be a really good pass protector out there in the NFL against those defensive ends.
So is pick 12 to the Ravens for Orlando Brown something you guys would consider, something we should think about?
I think it's something you could think about because once again, at least you have you don't have to worry about the cap this year, which pretty much the cap is going to be the biggest problem it is 2021 than it will be future down the line. So even if you do want to extend them, and he's worth more investing in terms of financial wise than Williams because the injuries that he's getting old. At least Brown you can hopefully project and you have that cornerstone there. But yeah, that 12 that's also a tough one. I kind of like the one that you did and said, Grant, with Sewell because at least then hey, at least if you're going to give it up, it probably won't be nearly as much given up, much capital given up. You don't have to worry about his expenditures until another 3-4 years down the line.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing with Brown, I've seen him before. He's a monster in pass protection. He's 6'8" and he plays like it. He doesn't get punked like Mike McGlinchey, who's 6'8", 285. He's a big dude. Only thing, he really is big. He's like he lists him at 345, which to me is an issue in the outside zone. I mean, it's basically why they got rid of Trent Brown, even if that was overblown. But they felt Trent Brown was too big, fluid enough in space to execute their zone blocking stuff, which to me is like way down the list of what's important from an offensive tackle. But it's really important to Kyle Shanahan and his dad. That might be one thing. It's like that may be the one thing that turns them off, or they would prefer maybe Penei Sewell or even Rashawn Slater, someone a little smaller than a 345-pound offensive tackle. But maybe you should just recognize that pass protection is a little more important, just a little.
Even if they do address offensive tackle, that left side, it's still going to be an issue with center and then guard.
Good point.
It's great, it's solidified, but shoot, they're still going to be deprived.
That's the one thing why I like Slater if he is there at 12 is he's a little bit on the shorter side for a left tackle, but if he is your left tackle for 1 year, I don't think that's the end of the world. And then if you're able to get a left tackle in 2022, then you're able to move Slater into right guard or center, which is what he's, I think, been mostly projected as for a long-term pro. And I think that wouldn't be the end of the world. It's obviously not the best option, but if you can have Slater as a right guard for the next 10 years and have Quentin Nelson, that's a pretty good get, in my opinion, too.
I mean, real quick, I mean, the Patriots left tackle is Isaiah Wynn, who's 6'2". I mean, it can be done. If the guy's a good player, he can play the position. I haven't watched a ton of Rashawn Slater, but what I've seen, I'm very impressed with. So I wouldn't just write him off because he's 6'3", but you really got to look closely because I'm sure a lot of 6'3" left tackles have busted. Just pointing out that Isaiah Wynn's 6'2".